Hello friend, I want to tell you about the Peugeot 308 car. What engines were installed? Under the hood of the 308, a new generation of petrol units from the Prince family appeared. The naturally aspirated ones, designated as VTI, and the supercharged THP were built together with BMW, which provided the variable valve timing system. The VTI was offered in two capacities, 1.4 and 1.6 liters. While the THP was only available in 1.6 liters. The power range in the VTI was 95 to 120 horsepower, while in the THP from 140 to 200 horsepower GTI version. The diesel range seems to be poor, as there are two HDI designs with a capacity of 1.6 liters and 2.0 liters. The smaller one generates a maximum of 112 HP and is intended mainly for saving, while the larger one from 136 to 163 HP and is driven dynamically yet still economically. The 2011 facelift introduced some changes, more powerful versions of some engines. The 1.4 VTI variant gained 3 hydrogen phosphide, while in the THP the matter is more complicated. Until the facelift, this engine was offered with 140, 150 and 174 hydrogen phosphide, while after the facelift only the 156 HP version remained, and the GTI variant with 200 HP debuted. In the diesels, the 1.6 HDI units with 90 and 109 horsepower were replaced by more powerful 92 and 112 horsepower. In the case of the 2-liter, 140 horsepower replaced the 136 horsepower version, while 150 and 163 horsepower were offered in parallel and interchangeably at different times. Which engine to choose? And here the real trouble begins. If we were to accept simple assumptions that we are looking for a car without problems, then we should recommend another car. Petrol engines are terrible, and diesels are simply diesels. A lot depends on the buyer's luck, from general to specific. VTI petrol engines are technically simpler, so in principle less problematic than THP, which does not mean that they are good. The heads and camshaft bearings, timing drive, injection system, lubrication system all break down in them. They collect carbon deposits despite the lack of direct injection, and they also burn oil. They are neither particularly dynamic nor remarkably economical, approximately 7 to 8 L 100 kilometers. So in my opinion, it's better to add a few disadvantages and potential faults in the form of turbocharging, direct injection, and a dual-mass flywheel, but at least enjoy the great performance of the THP engine while maintaining low fuel consumption for this power, up to 9 L 100 kilometers. Even in the weakest version, the THP gives much better performance than the 120 horsepower VTI. Either way, petrol engines are not the happiest choice. So is it better to take a diesel? Unfortunately, here we have a whole list of potential faults that occur in such engines, from dual mass through sensors and turbo, to the injection system, which is no longer cheap in this model. Depending on the condition of the engine and these elements, you can enjoy trouble-free operation and fuel consumption at the level of 5 L 100 kilometers, or get a bad one and spend a few thousand over the course of these few years on repairs, and in the end curse diesel forever. As a consolation, HDI engines are considered to be among the best, if not the best, in terms of durability. The 1.6 HDI is a bit more troublesome, with cylinder head failures or camshaft wear occurring more and more often. Unfortunately, the 2.0 HDI is also increasingly appearing in workshops with major faults. Fortunately, the selection of engines and spare parts is very good. Both types of engines have a FAP system, or particulate filter. Although this is generally a good solution, it still causes problems after a longer mileage. Similarly to the start and stop system in EHDI engines, which causes faster battery discharge. When deciding on a diesel, you must first assume that you buy a 1.6 for low fuel consumption and a 2.0 for good performance. The smaller HDI is not very dynamic, but can get down to 4 L 100 kilometers on the road. Contrary to popular belief, almost all power variants can have a dual-mass flywheel, although it is a relatively cheap part, often costing less than $350. The exception is the 92 horsepower variant offered since 2009, which always has a single mass flywheel. In the case of the 90 horsepower version, it varies, but most do not have dual mass. THP petrol engines also have dual mass flywheels. So how do you answer the question about the engine? In my opinion, if you like diesels, have a good mechanic and can find a nice one, The 308 with HDI under the bonnet is worth buying. That doesn't mean it's a better choice. If you're unlucky, you'll spend more on repairs than you would with a THP. If you buy a service THP, in my opinion, it is the best choice. If I were to buy a 308, it would be with this engine, although I am aware that it is a bundle of many flaws, and really because I am aware of it. According to one of the PSA Group's car specialists dealing with THP units, the engine can be completely taken care of for around $600 minus $750. If it is fully functional, all you need to do is keep an eye on the indicator lights, check the oil level, and clean the intake from carbon deposits every 100,000 kilometers or so. It seems like a significant amount, but just replacing the clutch with a dual mass flywheel for a diesel engine is a bill of around $500 minus $600. For counterweight, in normally used THPs, the dual mass flywheel lasts a very long time. Typical faults, unfortunately, engines are not the only problem with the Peugeot 308. This model struggles with electrical problems ranging from the smallest burning out bulbs or non-functioning equipment to the more serious power steering pump or control computer failure. One thing is certain, the 308 is not a good car for long trips, e.g. abroad. One of the typical faults is the failure of the power steering system, which in this model is electro-hydraulic. The pump must be replaced or rebuilt. The cost of a new, good quality one exceeds $250. A rebuilt or low-quality replacement costs about $150 minus $200, while originals, used and functional, usually cost up to $150. When deciding on a Peugeot 308, it is best to do some research in nearby garages. Without a Peugeot specialist and a good electrician, it is better to choose another brand. Many complaints from users also concern the suspension, especially the front one. Although it is a classic McPherson strut with a single wishbone, it has to be interfered with quite often. Sometimes there is play, more often undesirable sounds, scuffling, knocking, or creaking. The rear suspension is not problematic because it consists of a torsion beam. The braking system is also highly rated. Unfortunately, the Peugeot 308 is no longer as well protected against corrosion as older models. But that doesn't mean it rusts like Japanese cars. Small corrosion spots appear mainly in visible places without affecting driving comfort or safety. Is the Peugeot 308 a car with above-average failure rates? Yes, but it is also relatively cheap to repair. Its great advantage is its low susceptibility to corrosion. So when buying it, you probably won't have a mishap like with a Mazda or Honda. Thanks for listening to me. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and rate my video. If you know any problems with this car that I didn't mention, be sure to write about them in the comments.